Oh, hey. Boy, this crazy out here, boy. Real God. This crazy. Hey, boy, this crazy. Oh.
So this is frustrating. This is what I say all the time. If you're carrying firearms, you can't engage in a normal fight.
North 18th Street and East Main Street.
Like we just
see anything until the stop.
Yeah.
Like when they stop, that's when we see people.
This is Genesis Jones, a 23-year-old woman whose life would be cut short in the middle of a night meant for celebration. In the late hours of February 21, 2026, Richmond police were summoned to Shockoe Bottom, a call that would lead them to a scene no one was prepared for. When they arrived at the scene, more than 50 shots had been fired into the crowd at her younger brother's birthday party. Amid the chaos, Genesis was struck down. What the footage didn't reveal was the heartbreaking truth. The violence had erupted from a dispute between women fighting over a man, a conflict that spiraled into deadly gunfire. But Genesis wasn't just another victim of senseless violence. She was remembered for her radiant smile, her lively nature and ability, and the ease with which she made friends. That very spirit, her outgoing nature and love for life, placed her in the path of tragedy, silencing her laughter forever. What began as a night of joy spiraled into a nightmare, and as the city mourned, one haunting question remained. When jealousy turns to rage and rage turns to bullets, who truly pays the price? But before the haunting video plays, let's uncover the chain of events that led here. 23-year-old Genesis Jones was born in 2005 in Petersburg, Virginia. A bright young woman with a love for life, she was known for her outgoing personality and infectious smile. Heartbreakingly, it was that very spirit, her eagerness to be out, to live fully, that would place her in the wrong place at the wrong time, that would take her life. Before her death, Genesis carried a rare gift, the kind of presence that could transform any space the moment she walked in. Her laughter was magnetic, her warmth disarming, and she had a way of turning strangers into friends with ease. Wherever she went, she left behind more than just memories. She left an imprint, a spark that lingered long after she was gone. She had big dreams and an even bigger heart, always ready to support her family and friends in any way she could, which was evident in the number of people who trooped out for her vigil. Friends spoke of her encouragement during difficult times, while neighbors recalled her willingness to help without hesitation. Genesis was a loving daughter, sister, and friend. She shared an especially close bond with her family, particularly with her brother, Zekiah, who now carries the weight of their shared memories. Together, the siblings made memories that would never fade, from family celebrations to everyday moments filled with laughter. Their bond was inseparable. Genesis often played the role of protector, confidant, and cheerleader, ensuring Zekiah always felt supported. Genesis was not only a sister to Zekiah and her other brothers, but also a friend, someone who was always there for her loved ones, ready to offer a shoulder to lean on. Her family often remembered how she would stay up late just to listen, or how she would bring joy into even the most ordinary days. She was the kind of person who made others feel seen and valued, no matter the circumstance. So it was no surprise when she made sure to be there for one of the most joyful days of one of her younger brother's life, his birthday. For Genesis, family was everything, and being present for her brother's celebration was just another example of the love and loyalty that defined her life. That night was meant to be filled with laughter, music, and togetherness, a reflection of the bond they shared and the joy she carried wherever she went. On the fateful night of February 20, Genesis, along with her family, had traveled to Richmond, Virginia's Shockoe Bottom neighborhood from their hometown of Petersburg. They had come to celebrate her younger brother's birthday, a joyous occasion meant to be filled with fun, love, and laughter. It was supposed to be a night to remember, but it turned into something far darker. On February 21, at around 2:47 a.m., the peaceful early morning in Shockoe Bottom was shattered by gunshots. According to police reports and eyewitnesses, a shooting spree unfolded outside a popular bar on North 18th Street, just a stone's throw from where Genesis and her family were gathered. In the chaos that ensued, Zakiah recalled hearing the unmistakable sounds of gunshots, a terrifying moment that he would never forget. He also added that one of the bullets shot had passed his head and hit the building. Despite the sound of gunfire filling the air, Genesis and Zakiah had no idea how quickly their lives would change. As they tried to make sense of the situation, they could only watch as violence erupted around them. In the midst of the chaos, Genesis, like many others, tried to escape the violence that was quickly escalating in the streets of Shockoe Bottom.
Damn. Boy, this crazy out here, boy. Real God. This crazy. Hey, boy, this crazy.
However, in a cruel twist of fate, she would become one of the victims. Zakiah and Genesis were walking down the street, trying to distance themselves from the conflict unfolding. But, despite their efforts, Genesis was struck by gunfire in the midst of the chaos. The exact circumstances surrounding her death remain unclear, but what we do know is that Genesis was an innocent bystander caught in the crossfire of a senseless shooting. She was simply walking down the street, minding her own business, when violence took hold of her fate. But Genesis wasn't just another victim who tragically lost their lives that night. Alongside her, 42-year-old Dominique Jackson from Henrico County also succumbed to gunshot wounds. The scene was nothing short of horrific. More than 50 shots rang out, leaving chaos in the community. As the police arrived at the scene, they found multiple victims, including Genesis and Dominique, who had both been fatally injured by gunfire. At the time of the shooting, Genesis was simply trying to enjoy a special evening with her family. She had traveled from Petersburg with her loved ones, eager to celebrate her brother's birthday. But in the blink of an eye, that joy was replaced with heartbreak and sorrow. The shooting left not just physical wounds, it caused deep emotional scars for those who knew Genesis. Zakiah, her brother, was left to process the loss of a sibling, a young woman with so much life left to live.
Engine 11. Person. North 18th Street and East Main Street.
Like we just didn't see anything until the stop. Yeah. Like when they stop, that's when we see people.
Also, just reading the notes on the number of victims. Let's go ahead and assign another fire unit, please.
So this is frustrating. This is what I say all the time. If you're carrying firearms, you can't engage in a normal fight.
Thanks for joining us at 11. I'm John Burkett. A violent night in one of Richmond's most popular entertainment districts leaves 2 dead and 7 others suffering gunshot wounds. Coming up later, our AJ Nwoko shares the voice of a family member who lost his loved one from last night. But first, I was able to talk to police who say the fight ended in firepower, turning a packed street into a chaotic crime scene in Shockoe Bottom.
Rang out from multiple different individuals.
North 18th, the corner of Main Street.
Engine 11. Person.
Close to 3 a.m.
I can confirm that this did not originate in a club, and all the bars were closed at 2 a.m. This was people hanging out on the streets. 2 groups of individuals started fighting.
Chief Rick Edwards saying investigators have recovered 2 weapons and warning there may be more. My sources telling me there were at least 4 different caliber rounds found on scene.
I didn't see anything until the stop. stop. Yeah, like when they stop, that's when we see people.
Jada Moore and Tatiana Coleman, both bar employees nearby, say at that point they admittedly were scared.
That's why we didn't take it serious at first, because we're in Chaco Bottom.
Yeah.
So we're used to the gun. But like I told everyone, I'm like, I've worked here for like over a year.
Yeah.
I've never heard guns happen for that long consecutively.
It was a lot. It was at least, I mean, I heard at least 10 back to 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 back to
It
back.
started off slow and it got faster and faster, and that's when we were like, get behind the wall.
So many fired, evidence placards were in the 60s.
Also, just reading the notes on the number of victims. Let's go ahead and assign another fire unit, please.
In a district meant for celebrations, 2 families are now preparing for funerals, while city leaders who already say they've implemented a number of safety programs in the bottom will keep moving forward with other public safety initiatives.
There would be community ambassadors who would be roaming the streets, who would be a resource, and as clubs are closing down, would actually shepherd people home. And so that's part of the strategy that we're working on, pulling funding together for, hiring and training up folks for, that we had planned to launch early summer.
The pain of losing Genesis, someone who was so full of life, so young at only 23, is a burden that her family will carry forever. In the wake of the tragedy, Zakiah spoke about the emotional toll it had taken on his family. Zakiah's words echoed the shared sense of loss that not only the family, but the entire Richmond community felt after the shooting. What was meant to be a joyous occasion, a birthday celebration, turned into a tragic event that would forever change the lives of everyone involved.
But beyond the damage in Chaco Bottom, family members are grieving about something that can never be repaired or replaced. Our AJ Nwoko gives a voice to one man who's broken after losing his sister to last night's violence.
You're looking at the aftermath immediately following in Chaco Bottom early Saturday morning. But beyond the blinding blue lights, dozens of shell casings, collateral damage visible in the daylight, or even the 9 total people injured.
We were outside of Margaritas. We heard a few go off, like 10 to 15. One of them actually went past my head and hit the building.
The true measure of a mass are the ones lost.
She was so young, 23, she didn't have a chance to really live life yet.
A bleak reality that Zakiah Jones now faces.
There were multiple individuals. That's what I'm prepared to say at this time.
According to Police Chief Rick Edwards, an officer heard a commotion just outside of the bar before driving up and seeing one of the victims of the shooting in response. Zakiah's sister, Genesis Jones, is 23 years old from Petersburg, with one of the 2 deaths in this mass, along with 42-year-old Dominic Jackson from Henrico County. Edwards also confirmed that a man is currently in the hospital with life-threatening injuries.
I just heard this and I just saw people running, and that's just Chaco Bottom. It's a sad part that that's a part of Chaco Bottom life.
Zakiah says he and his sister Genesis were visiting from Petersburg, celebrating their brother's birthday before tragedy struck.
She was all for having a fun time. She was all for people getting together, having fun, loving each other, because that's ultimately what I feel like we were put on this earth to do.
Zakiah says what's going through his mind now is why violent crime like this continues to happen, even with a police presence in Chaco Bottom.
I was always against guns, but I think it really hits home now, where I feel like we as the people, no matter what race, gender, we all have to come together. The violence has to stop.
As police continue to investigate and search for suspects, and Mayor Danny Avula promises safety and prevention.
So we've got a lot more to do to prevent these from happening in the future. But this is job number 1 for us right now.
Zakiah says his family now must make sense of the city's most violent so far in 2026.
23, that's just, she's still a baby. She was still a baby. She still is our baby. No family should have to feel this, especially during this time of year. We're here to celebrate, and now we're leaving this celebratory moment in grief, and that's just no way that I wouldn't want to feel or anybody else to feel.
Reporting in Richmond, AJ Nwoko, CBS 6 News.
The shooting also raised troubling questions about the prevalence of violent crime in areas like Chaco Bottom, a neighborhood already known for its high crime rates. Despite police presence in the area, this mass shooting occurred, leaving behind a trail of devastation and forcing both the police and the community to confront the reality of violence on their streets. In the aftermath of the shooting, Mayor Danny Avula of Richmond promised to do everything in his power to ensure that such an incident never happens again. His statement echoed the sentiments of many as the city grappled with the reality of losing innocent lives in such a senseless manner. While these words provided some comfort, the reality was that Zakaya and her family were left in a state of disbelief and profound grief. The shooting had not only claimed the life of a beloved sister, daughter, and friend, but had shattered the sense of safety in the community. Genesis Jones was a young woman with a bright future, a sister and a friend who was tragically taken too soon. Her death has not only left her family and loved ones devastated, but it also serves as a painful reminder of the violence that continues to plague communities across the nation.
We can't underscore the pain that causes when two of our regional residents needlessly lost their lives.
It has been nearly 72 hours after two gunmen opened fire near a Shockoe Bottom intersection, and injuring 7 others. Richmond Mayor Danny Avula speaking out on the matter, calling it a needless tragedy. You're watching 8 News at 11. So glad to have you with us tonight. I'm Eric Phillips.
And I'm Heather Holt. Richmond Police Chief Rick Edwards alongside the mayor tonight as they discuss with us the next steps, including an around-the-clock investigation. 8 News reporter Ben Walls is live at Richmond City Hall after speaking with both the mayor and chief. And Ben, how is the city going to move forward?
Well, city leaders say the loss of life is immeasurable as they're tasked with keeping their citizens safe. Now, Mayor Avula says the key is community intervention.
It was a really horrific incident that impacted our city and took the lives of 2 people.
Families and the Richmond City community continue to mourn the losses of 23-year-old Genesis Jones and 42-year-old Dominic Antoine Jackson in Shockoe Bottom over the weekend. 7 more were injured, and an investigation is still ongoing to solve the mystery of who did it.
Part of that is reviewing the reams of video footage that we have. Community members have been sending us video, and I would like to encourage people to continue to do that.
There's a behavioral part of this that we've got to address.
Addressing those strategies, Richmond Mayor Danny Avula wants to use money coming out of the current General Assembly session for community intervention.
Having a team of ambassadors that would go and work on site in the Shockoe Bottom neighborhood, work with business owners, work to disperse people after the clubs let out.
Another is labeling Shockoe as a free zone. A bill for the General Assembly's consideration has been pushed from this year to next year, allowing for localities to label areas as free. Mayor Avula says he would support a free ordinance in Shockoe.
I think the fact that that conversation is being lifted in the General Assembly is really good and really important.
Now, 8 News has tried to reach out to Council Member Cynthia Newbill, who represents Shockoe, where that happened, and she says she's continuously had meetings with her constituents about safety, and that she would be following up with 8 News soon about how to continue after this past on Saturday. Now, Heather and Eric, there is some good news tonight. Chief Edwards says all the remaining victims in Saturday are now in non-life-threatening status. Reporting live at Richmond City Hall, I'm Ben Walls, 8 News.
Well, that is some positive news tonight, Ben. Thanks.
The tragic shooting in Shockoe Bottom, Richmond, on January 7, 2023, did not just leave physical wounds, but also sent ripples of grief and confusion throughout the community. The pain of losing Genesis Jones, along with Dominique Jackson, brought an entire city to a standstill as police began to investigate the mass shooting that had claimed their lives and injured 7 others. The investigation into the shooting began almost immediately. Richmond Police Chief Rick Edwards and his team worked tirelessly to piece together the events that led to such a violent and senseless act. According to Chief Edwards, police officers were alerted to the chaos in Shockoe Bottom at around 2:47 a.m. that morning. The officers had been responding to a commotion outside the bars on North 18th Street, where the shooting had erupted. As they arrived at the scene, they found one of the victims unresponsive, Genesis Jones, among the casualties. but the police initially described the situation as multiple individual shootings. However, it soon became clear that the violence had erupted in a single tragic incident. According to Zakiya, Genesis and her family were visiting from Petersburg, celebrating her younger brother's birthday, when violence struck. In the aftermath, Chief Edwards confirmed that 2 victims had died from gunshot wounds, including Genesis and Dominique, while the other injured victims, though hurt, survived. The Richmond Police Department began their search for suspects immediately after the shooting, with investigators working tirelessly to gather evidence. However, the case was shrouded in the fear and uncertainty of the unknown. No one knew who had fired the deadly shots that took Genesis' life, nor what truly sparked the violence in the heart of Shockoe Bottom. As news of the shooting spread, the Richmond community was left shaken by the senseless loss of life. For Zakiya, the pain of losing his sister Genesis was made even more unbearable by the fact that it occurred in such a violent and unpredictable way. Genesis had simply been walking down the street, minding her own business, trying to avoid the chaos unfolding around her. But it was too late. She was caught in the crossfire of a situation she had no part in. For many others in Richmond and beyond, this mass shooting brought to the forefront the ongoing issue of gun violence and public safety. With the city grappling with a troubling crime rate, the incident in Shockoe Bottom raised further questions about the effectiveness of current law enforcement efforts and what more could be done to prevent such tragedies in the future. Police were left with no clear answers as to what sparked the shooting, but many onlookers speculated that it might have been the result of rival groups clashing in the area. This assumption added a layer of concern for the safety of the community, as it highlighted the ongoing issue of gang-related violence in Richmond. While Genesis was just an innocent bystander, there were many who feared that the violence could spill over into other parts of the city, threatening the safety of other residents. Zakiya's deep sense of loss was shared by the community as a whole. People in Shockoe Bottom, once known for its vibrant nightlife, now had to contend with the painful aftermath of yet another violent incident. In a city already struggling with crime, the mass shooting was another reminder of the problems that many people faced in their everyday lives. Shockoe Bottom, despite its history as a popular entertainment district, had a notably high crime rate. According to crime statistics, the area saw a significant number of violent crimes each year, making it one of the most dangerous parts of Richmond. Despite the high level of violence, no one expected that Genesis, an innocent bystander, would be caught in the crossfire. Her death highlighted the randomness and unpredictability of gun violence in communities struggling with crime. It wasn't just that she had been in the wrong place at the wrong time. She was a victim of a systemic problem, one that left her family with questions about the safety of their city, their community, and their loved ones. As the investigation into the tragic shooting in Shockoe Bottom continues, one thing is certain: the loss of Genesis Jones and Dominique Jackson will not be forgotten. For their families, the fight for justice is just beginning, and they remain determined to ensure that their loved ones did not die in vain. The devastation of that night has left a deep scar on Zakiya and her family, but they are determined to seek justice for Genesis, Dominique, and all the victims affected by the violence. The community's response has been overwhelming, with grief and outrage being expressed by local residents, activists, and city leaders alike.
The chair recognizes the senator from Eastern Henrico.
Madam President, I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Senator has the floor.
Madam President, over the weekend, a devastating tragedy occurred here in our Commonwealth, right here in Richmond. And today I rise to uplift the life of Genesis Jones of Petersburg. Madam President, as a human being first, and then as a mom, when I heard about this tragedy, the details didn't matter. The circumstances didn't matter. What mattered was that today there are families in my communities who are carrying the unbearable pain of knowing they will never see their loved ones again. Madam President, Genesis Jones, the daughter of Tangi Jones and Markel Jones, was a 23-year-old young woman whose life did not deserve to be cut short by gun violence. Genesis was more than a headline. She was a daughter, a friend, a member of her community. She was a 23 years old, an age filled with ambition, possibility, and the promise of a future still unfolding. Her dreams, her contributions, and the life she was building was taken far too soon. Her oldest brother, Madam President, shared with me that Genesis had a way of making you feel comfortable being around her. She was herself at all times and full of energy and laughter. She could effortlessly make you laugh. She had a lot of potential and was finally coming into herself as a young woman. But now she's been robbed of that. My sister had an impact on so many. Madam President, I rise today not only to mourn her loss, but to recognize the profound impact that loss has had on her loved ones and on the broader community that I represent. Madam President, no family should have to endure the pain of losing a child to violence, and no community should grow accustomed to the grief that arrives with such devastating regularity. Genesis' name deserves to be spoken in this chamber, and she deserves to be remembered with dignity. Madam President, her memory calls on us to reflect on the value of every life, on the safety of our neighborhoods, and on our responsibility as leaders to work to ensure that we fight for a commonwealth where young people, and all people, quite frankly, can pursue their futures without fear. Madam President, today I extend my deepest condolences to Genesis' family and friends, and to every family that was affected by this senseless act of violence. Thank you.
The Richmond Police Department has continued its investigation, focusing on finding the individuals responsible for the shooting. While the police department works tirelessly to track down suspects and determine the exact cause of the shooting, the emotional toll on the Jones family remains immeasurable. In the wake of the tragedy, Zakiya has found solace in knowing that Genesis's death has sparked a larger conversation about violence and safety in Richmond. For him, and for many others, the loss of Genesis is a stark reminder of the dangers that still exist, even in places where people should feel safe. The brutal and senseless shooting in Shockoe Bottom has once again reignited the call for law enforcement reforms across the United States. The presence of police officers in areas like Shockoe Bottom aimed at preventing violent crimes has not always translated to safety for the residents. While the shooting of Genesis was not directly tied to police misconduct, the fact that it occurred in a known high-crime area raises serious questions about the effectiveness of current policing strategies. Local activists have continued to advocate for meaningful changes to the way police officers engage with communities. While some point to the need for better training and more transparent practices, others emphasize the importance of addressing the root causes of crime, including poverty, lack of resources, and systemic inequality. As the community grapples with its grief, the broader conversation about the intersection of crime, policing, and public safety continues. The conversation is not just about finding the individuals responsible for this specific shooting, but also about the systemic issues that allow such violence to persist. While Zakiya and others demand justice for Genesis and Dominique, they also call for a broader reckoning with the way crime is policed and the systemic issues that drive it. As the investigation continues and justice is sought, it is clear that the road ahead for Zakiya and her family will be long and difficult. The grief that accompanies the sudden loss of a loved one will never truly go away, but it is evident that they are determined to keep their sister's memory alive by seeking justice and bringing attention to the ongoing issue of gun violence in their community. Zakiya's commitment to change reflects the sentiment shared by many in Richmond and across the country. The mass shooting that took Genesis's life has sparked an outpouring of support for the family, as well as a renewed call for action to address the violence that continues to plague cities like Richmond. As the city works towards making Shockoe Bottom safer, there's hope that the tragedy of Genesis's death will not only bring justice, but also spark real change. The call for deeper reforms in law enforcement, especially in high-crime areas, is louder than ever. Lawmakers, activists, and everyday citizens are demanding that the government address the root causes of crime, while also pushing for more accountability in policing. Zakia's call for unity, for people to come together regardless of race or gender, is a call to action for everyone who wants to see a safer, more just society. While the loss of Genesis and Dominique will never be forgotten, Zakia and the community of Richmond are committed to fighting for a future where such tragedies no longer happen. This fight for justice and reform will continue, fueled by the memories of those lost and the desire to protect future generations from suffering the same fate.
Blessed are the dead which die in the Lord from henceforth. Yea, says the Spirit.
Thank you, Jesus. On behalf of the family of Genesis Jones, gratitude for the many expressions of love, prayer, calls, visits, and every act of kindness shown during this difficult time. May God richly bless you for your compassion and for your care.
The future of Richmond and the country at large depends on whether meaningful action can be taken to end the cycle of violence and restore safety to communities everywhere. But for now, Zakia and her family are left to mourn the loss of a sister, daughter, and friend. What do you think about it? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this story intriguing, please like, share, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.